Hello and welcome to the latest episode of our festival focus, and we will be looking at the pinnacle of the festival, the Gold Cup. Right, so it's the big one, the Gold Cup. Mikey?
I think it's interesting tactically, because if Couture goes off from the front, like he probably should do, he can control the pace, he can make it less of a stamina test and he can make it suit him. However, with the Jigginstown, possibly 3 in the race, you'd want one of them at least to be right up the front, helping the pace for the others. So they could put in something like Wounded Warrior or possibly Valsalido, maybe, to force the pace, to make it a little bit better for Don COSSACK and for Don Poli.
And obviously the race seems it's revolving around Vettor. Is he going to stay, Fletch?
I've got my doubts about Vettor staying. I think the King George is renowned as a speed test around Kempton, but you have to stay in the King George. And I think although Ruby blamed himself to a degree over Christmas, I think there were plenty of holes to be seen in his stamina. This extra 2.5 furlongs at Cheltenham, I think he'll probably be found wanting from the back of the last, so a stronger stayer like Don COSSACK or Don Poli could easily pick him up again.
We're not forgetting that he's such a better horse on better ground at Cheltenham.
It's true, but we might not get better ground, and you'd really, the test is that last, from the back of the last up the hill, and I'd rather be on one that I think does stay than one that there's question marks around.
Dan?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think he's a doubtful stayer. I think he's a machine. I think we all think that. But like Fletch says, the King George really was he didn't quite get home, but he probably should have done. I prefer stablemate Jack Adam. I know he fell last time, which is a little bit of a worry, but he was still travelling well then. He was a good second last year. He's still a young, fairly unexposed, improving horse. And he was only 1.5 lengths behind Coneybury, rated the best horse.
Has he blown his chance though? Horses beaten in their first run in the Gold Cup, returning for a second attempt, and 0 from 58 this century. It's got to be a worry. And the horses that have run in the same calendar year just don't have a very good record.
I don't worry at all about the stat with the Gold Cup. Think about it, if you take Coneybury out, who's not running this year, he won it. So I'd look at it from that angle. I think he's a fantastic horse. He probably should have had a good chance in the JLT when he fell as well then. That's the only issue for me. If he stands up, I think it'll take a good horse to beat him.
Who's going to ride? Who's going to ride him? Who's going to ride?
I wouldn't be too concerned if Paul Townend rode him, to be perfectly honest with you. I think it's a tough one between the two. I think Vortor's probably the better horse, but at this stage I think Jack Adam is the better horse in the Gold Cup.
I don't think there's a question in terms of who's going to ride who. If Vettor goes in the Gold Cup, it'll be ridden by Ruby Walsh, as simple as that, because they think the world of him. I
agree. I mean, I'm a huge Vettor fan. I think round Cheltenham, he's a completely different animal. I mean, I know he looked like he didn't stay at Kempton, but I mean, he was all the winner bar the last ride. Who would have said if they'd have carried on racing? Would he have saw that horse and carried on? May well have done. There's no way to know that he wouldn't have. And then wouldn't have reacted.
Forgetting as well that Don COSSACK was right up alongside Q Card over the second last.
Yeah. I mean, Fletch, you like Don COSSACK, don't you?
I do. I think it's hard to say. Obviously, there were 2 fences to jump, but if he'd have stood up where he was compared to Q Card when he came down, I think in all likelihood he probably would have won, despite getting a not very good trip and looking a touch lazy at different points of the race. I think better ground at Cheltenham. I think the possible addition of cheap pieces might just sharpen him up and let him travel through the race better, but I think he's where I...
Horses wearing headgear and 0 from 35 this century.
I wouldn't... The class horses tend not to wear headgear. It makes a big difference in handicaps at the festival.
And to be fair, it does sound like Gordon Elliott is going off the idea, because he thinks better ground will be fine for him anyway. So
he just wants to sharpen him up and make sure he's concentrating on the job.
Let's just settle the Don debate. Don COSSACK or Don Poli? Dan?
I think Don Poli's a great horse. He's an enigma and he's not one you can trust with any confidence whatsoever. but it's just the kind of horse that can pop up and really, really upset the apple cart. I know his win in the Lexus was less than impressive, but that's how he runs.
He's never going to win on the bridle, is he?
No, I think it'll be difficult for him if he does fall asleep halfway through, take a few reminders halfway through a Gold Cup. It'll be difficult to get back into it. But we saw a synchronised. He was miles back. Lord Windermere was one of those. But Lord Windermere was miles off. He was looking like he was going to be pulled up with Circuit.
I was saying pull him up going down the fence.
So horses can do that. It's the extra 2.5 furlongs on the 3 miles does tell a lot. And staying on up that hill, Don Poli will stay.
So you're Don Poli, Mikey?
I'd say Don Cossack on a class angle. When I watch Don Poli, I think he's a boat at the end of the day. He's so lazy. He stays all day, yes, but has he got the pace to contend with the top Gold Cup contenders? I'm not sure yet.
What?
I'm in the Cossack camp. Until Christmas, I liked Don Poli, but I think over at the Lexus Christmas show suggested to me he probably didn't have much left. He's a bit of a kidder, but I'm not sure how much he had left. I think Don Cossack's run at Punchestown last spring was excellent. That's top class form. I think better ground. I think he's the one to beat. I'm
going to make it 3-1 to Don Cossack. I think he was a little bit unlucky in the ride. He showed he had quite a lot to give. He went and won at Aintree. I'm not saying he's going to win the race. I don't fancy him to win the race, but out of the two, with Don Cossack. Q card. He's won 2 Grade 1s. He's going for the £1 million bonus. Are we going to write him off? Are we foolish to write him off?
I will write him off.
Write him off?
I don't think he'll stay. I still think he's a doubtful stayer over 3 miles. I know he's done it so far this year.
He can breathe now.
He can possibly breathe, but the King George, I must admit, I didn't think he was going to win that coming into it, and he ended up doing it. He proved me wrong, but this is a different kettle of fish completely. 2.5 furlongs without staying on that hill. I don't think he'll get there. At this stage of his career, he may be the best he's ever been, but is it going to be good enough to win the Gold Cup? I'm not convinced.
He'd win the Rhino, wouldn't he?
I'm not so sure.
He's not going to go for the Rhino.
No, he'd win the Rhino, I think.
But
I'm not so sure that Q-Card won't stay. I really think he's a completely different animal this time around, and to have him priced worse than Vittor is kind of a little bit disrespectful, because he's proven he can beat him on merit almost. Because Vittor had the run of the race and Q-Card did him late on. Don't forget there's an extra furlong added onto that also in the Gold Cup, so I think Q-Card's overpriced really.
Anything out of the pack? Rose to Riches, he was third last year. It's a solid run.
I think Rose to Riches is a good horse in his own right, but I can't see him beating Jack Adam. I can't see why he'd overturn that form and improve past him.
He looked like he was stopping up the hill last year, didn't he?
Yeah, and same sort of thing said for Smad Place. I know he won well at Cheltenham, but he benefited from a fall from Jack Adam. He was well beaten in this last year. I think his frailty has been shown when he's up against the proper top class, that he's just not at that level to properly contend. Albeit he should have won the RSA a few years ago. And now Steve still feeling that a bit in the wallet, but I think he's a good horse, but it's just not good enough. I think it's a very strong Gold Cup this year. Probably one of the most open ones we've seen for a long time.
One fact, going back to Vittor, 9 of the last 12 individual winners to win the race were unproven over the trip. I'm going to start by saying who I think is going to win, and I think it's going to be Vittor. I think he's got the class, he fits a lot of the trends. Ruby Walsh and William Williams adore this horse. They clearly think he's got some engine. I know the JLT last year was over shorter, but good ground Cheltenham. He's shown that he flies up that hill. I think Ruby's the perfect person to ride him. He might be quite prominent, but he'll still be quite quiet. He knows when to go. Ruby knows when to go at Cheltenham. There's no better horse, in my opinion, in the race. There's no better jockey in the race, and I think that Vittor has got an outstanding chance. So he's my pick. Fletch?
Yeah, I'm going to have to start with Don Cossack. I've got history with Jack Adam from last year, so I'd be still like to see him run well, but I like to see him finish second to Don Cossack. I think he's got everything that you need in a Gold Cup when he stays. He's got a bit of class. I'm not particularly concerned his form at Cheltenham's a bit iffy, but I think he's the one to beat.
Mikey?
Yeah, the more I look at the race, I see Don Cossack being probably the class angle. I worry about Vittor because no matter what happens, they're going to test his stamina and he might come up short. But I think Q-Card's a big price. I really do. Really think Q-Card's a big price on everything he's shown this season.
So you go for Q-Card?
I'll go for Q-Card.
Dan, unfortunately, you've got the final say here.
I'd go for Jack Adam. I'd go.
The complete trends buster he's going
I'd
for.
go second last year to Coneybury, who we know is on his day when he was the highest rated novice. I think that run last year was superb, and I can't get over that really coming to this.
I think that pretty much sets it up. The four of us, none of us can agree it's going to be a great race.